Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale right here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi video. And today we're going to be talking about and reviewing Danmachi's latest episode, Danmachi Season 4's penultimate episode, in fact. And we're going to be talking about Danmachi Season 4 episode number 21. It's been a long season, and of course it has been the longest ever Danmachi season, of course. So I'm very excited to be covering it and of course talking about the episodes. Of course, if you haven't seen any of the other episode reviews, you can go check them out. I have a full playlist of the Danmachi anime episodes I've done and reviewed, including some other sort of like videos as well, so you can go check it out over there. Of course, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more Danmachi content, and of course leave a comment down below letting me know how did you guys feel about the episode as well. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Of course, I've watched the episode twice now. I've had time to obviously digest everything and understand it, of course. So I'm very excited to be talking about this episode because of course this episode was gonna be a little bit slower than the last episode. It wasn't gonna be as exciting and thrilling, I suppose, as the last episode, but I think they did a fantastic job with this episode. In all honesty, they slowed it down really well, but it didn't feel like it was a huge slowdown or a huge tonal change. You know, we still had the effects of the dungeon going around, and of course the second half of the episode carries with that point in particular. But of course the first half of the episode is of course them taking a little bit of time to rest, digest everything. Of course, we see some interactions between Bell and Ryu as well, right, which is obviously feeding into the Bell and Ryu shippers, of course, right? And of course this is a topic I think we'll see a lot of in the Reddit posts, by the way, is the point of, how is Bell and I still a thing, even though we're seeing so many other female characters, and especially in this season, of course, in particular, we're seeing Bell and Ryu's relationship go to another level even, right? And I want to talk about that in a bit, of course, and I think I'll go into more detail with that, assuming other people talk about it. I'm 100% expecting that to be one of the comments, so I'll go into that in more detail later on, of course, but I do believe that to be the case as well. I think that, Omori Sensei, this is more so a byproduct of Omori Sensei's writing, more so than the anime. The anime struggles to anyways relate Bell to eyes very well anyways, but the thing is, right, it's sort of exponentially created from Omori Sensei's own writing, where in the main series Eyes doesn't get that much showtime, unfortunately, right? And it's a byproduct of having a character way too strong in comparison to Bell, because if Bell relies on Eyes and develops his relationship with Eyes, Eyes will solve all of Bell's problems, which will lead to an issue where Bell's development is stagnant, effectively, right? That is it's a problem. It's a circle of problems basically that'll keep happening. It's like, oh, we want Bell to grow his relationship with Eyes, but then Eyes would have an issue with will save Bell from any of his problems, which will make Bell a weak character, and it'll be a cycle like that, and as a result, Bell, it would end up becoming one of those shows where it's like it's not really it wouldn't really be Danmachi anymore. Basically, it would be sort of like, I'm trying to think of a title of a show. Basically, is it wrong for me to try it and do nothing so that my heroine can save me, or something like that, right? It ends up becoming that sort of situation. You could have Bell develop as well alongside Eyes, but when it comes to a lot of these really big underdog situations, like, let's be real, against the Juggernaut, right? The Juggernaut would absolutely be eviscerated by Eyes, and a lot of other things would also happen in the past records that we've had with Bell and Eyes. So that's besides the point. I'm deviating from the review of this episode a bit too much. We'll talk about it later on, of course, but yeah, I think they did a good job in relating Bell and Ryu really well together, of course, with the whole situation and the scenario that they're in, right? I think they adapted that extremely well from the light novel. I think right now we're getting to the point where they're doing really well with adapting the light novel correctly, because I know in the past with the Colosseum and stuff like that, it's been very hit or miss, right? In some cases they've been hitting, and then some cases it feels like it's a miss, and it's a very important miss at times, right? But I think so far, I think the last two episodes have shown that they're doing at least justice to the end sections, which is really important, of course, when it comes to the context of the season, right? And yeah, I think they did a great job with the romantic side of things, of course, in terms of Sayori Hayami's voice actress doing a fantastic Sayori Hayami's voice actress, Ryu's voice actress Sayori Hayami doing a fantastic job. I was gonna say Sayori Hayami's voice actress Ryu, which was completely wrong, but Ryu's voice actress Sayori Hayami did a great job. So did Matsuoka with Bell. They did a brilliant job. Of course, the light is on them. The spotlight is on them because they're the only two characters actually, you know, vocalizing something in these episodes, right? Outside of the monsters grunting and growling and, you know, making noise, basically. It's only two of them, right? So for me, I think they're doing a fantastic job carrying the episode. The gravitas, you know, of their acting has been brilliant, because if there is an issue with the visuals, if there is an issue with the context of everything, the voice acting, the performances have to carry in order to be able to at least put some emotion into it. And I think that's what's been done extremely well in this episode, for sure. Of course, you know, we had the whole hugging scene and everything as well, and whatnot, and them talking about the familiars, and, you know, Bell talking about Elise a little bit, and then of course Ryu talking about what Ryu and Bell talking about what would they do when they go home. They'll eat Mamma Mia's home cooked meal, or at the tavern, and then of course then you obviously have Belle saying he wants to say I'm home to Hestia. I think it was brilliantly done overall. And then of course we move into the second half of the episode, which was of course focused around them trying to make their way back up top and getting intercepted basically by the Juggernaut. Now, of course, this is a improved Juggernaut to an extent. Of course, it's a slower monster. Bell even notes that, which was really a nice touch in that point, you know. Of course, you can... I don't think it was shown really well, but again, it's that whole tell, don't show kind of vibe that they're going for in these episodes. And of course, Bell mentions that, you know, the Juggernaut's going a little bit slower, but because he's now absorbed monsters as well, because he's eaten monsters, he's absorbed everything. I think they did a good job in showing all the monsters and sections as well. I think that was really well done. And again, that's where the emphasis on the monsters was important, right? And that's where my issues came with the Colosseum episode and the episode before the Colosseum as well, was they didn't show the monsters in its glory, right? But they obviously had to do it because of the Juggernaut. And in all honesty, they did do it well with some of them, like the Skull Sheep and the Paludas and stuff, but some of the other monsters could have been done better, because obviously the Juggernaut has them now absorbed in his body. He's fused with them basically, right? So it was very interesting to see how they were going to present it, and they did a good job, I think, in presenting it. The movement of the Juggernaut, the moves that it used and everything, and the obviously the attacks and stuff were well done overall. And generally, I would say that they did a good job with that scene. I don't think there was a really an issue per se from my end personally with that scene. I think if anything, I would have just said that, again, it's a byproduct of a previous episode having issues, where it would have been nice to see some things in this episode regarding that. I know that some people actually pointed out that they don't remember when, you know, the Juggernaut got injured in the first place, but I think it's also a problem of like having the seasons spread apart, right? When I say it's been a long season, it's been a long season because the first half of the season was back in the summer season. It was during June. It aired between June to September. And then we had a 3-month break, and then we came back to the season. So I definitely understand why some people forgot about it. But we did see the Juggernaut getting injured. From my memory, I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, we saw the Juggernaut getting injured. And then of course when we saw him walking in a couple of episodes ago, we did see him also injured without the right arm basically. So I think it was that was completely fine, of course, and they referred back to it anyways in the episode as well, which was well done, because they kind of needed to do it again because of the duration between the first half of the season and the second half of the season, right? So it makes sense in that regards. Overall, I think this episode was well done. Again, I think I have to give a huge shout out to the voice actors in this episode, because they had to carry a lot of the more emotional moments, and the sort of like internal monologues was done extremely well in this episode, and that's something we needed to see in Danmachi a lot, because I feel like a lot of Danmachi's dialogue is internal monologues sometimes, you know, especially when it comes to characters like Eyes, for example, right? And if they plan on doing a next season for Sora Rotoria, because I'm expecting potentially a announcement at the end of the next episode, in all honesty, for something new, because is 10 projects for Danmachi planned, right? For Danmachi's 10th anniversary. This is Danmachi's overall 10th anniversary for the light novel and everything. There is 10 projects announced. The 10th project hasn't been confirmed yet. We know what the other 9 projects are. We don't know what the last project is. So there is a possibility that we might get it announced in the next episode. Of course, it being the final episode of the season. I'm very curious to see if they'll make the next episode longer by any chance, because from memory, of course, we have the rest of the fight to go, as well as the epilogue. And I think I want one scene from volume 15 to come in, because I think it's a somewhat of an important scene. They're definitely not going to adapt volume 15 in its entirety, but I think if there's one scene, there needs to be one scene added from volume 15 into that episode. So we'll have to wait and see how long the next episode will be, but I think generally speaking, this episode was well done. Overall, fantastic job by the voice actor and voice actress. Honestly, fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic job. Now let's have a look at what the Redditors have to say about this episode. I'm very curious to see if they liked it, disliked it, did they like the slower pace and stuff like that. Of course, these are light novel readers, so of course they're gonna be okay with it, I think, for the most part, because that's exactly how it went in the light novel as well. We had the exciting moments, and then of course the flashback sequences into the slower sequences, and now back into the fast-paced sequence. So let's see what everybody has to say. After an epic and unforgettable previous episode, I thought The Only Way was down, but it keeps on delivering even when one knows what was coming. The OST and sound effects are so on point to driving home the epicness we're seeing right now, and sound and vision just coming together perfectly. And then there was Bell and Ryu's sweetness. It's so perfect, they look so good together. I love Ice to death, and I'm well aware she's a final destination and canon ship, but by god, this just works so well on so many levels. Ryu's popularity is going to skyrocket. Yeah, absolutely agree. I think in the West especially, Ryu is going to get into the top 5 for a lot of people very, very easily, if not the top 3. And of course in Japan, I know that Ryu's already in like their top 5s as well. I reacted to actually a Japanese YouTuber's top 25 Danmachi heroines, which you guys can go check out on the YouTube channel. But yeah, I think a lot of people are in a very similar thought process, basically, where Ryu is definitely in the top ranks, at the very least in the top 5, I would say. So yeah, absolutely agreed. Rhubarb says the scene where Bell shot a firebolt into his wound to causterize his wound is really, really good. Absolutely agreed. I think that was a great scene to add. I noticed it and I was like, damn, they actually did that. That's kind of cool, That is actually kind of cool. I wasn't expecting it, but they did a good job with adding it, in all honesty. Let the Bell and Ryu hype skyrocket. Let's freaking go. Wow, even as an Ice shipper, it's hard for me to deny this. Those moments were really precious. Yeah, it was definitely very, very precious. Welcome to why so many people ship Bell and Ryu together. Until Ice and Bell get their moment together, it's gonna be hard to top this. I said it earlier on. I knew people were gonna talk about it here, I knew people were gonna talk about it here. Romance. Grandpa Zeus, is that you? Bell and Ryu are finna be coming in hot, for real, for real. I've never read the manga, only watched the anime, but by god, I don't care if Bell and Ice are the canon pairing. This episode genuinely put me 100% for a Bell and Ryu pairing. The scene both at the beginning and the end of the episode were like a cherry on top of their relationship that's been building up throughout this entire season. I've read the MSLN and still 100% Bell and Ryu. We're reading appropriate pauses reply to just another throwaway. The LN doesn't really add much else for Eyes than what's shown in the anime, but however, the spin-off with Eyes SO seems to add more to the Eyes and Bell ship I must be missing. In regards to that point, yes, it adds a little bit more from Eyes' side. There's still no moments between Eyes and Bell in particular, I feel. Sometimes yes, but not really significant moments, I feel, right? So it is still, I would say, like, you get the development from Bell's side, you get the development from Eyes' side, but you never get the moments together like we are getting for Bell and Ryu in this season. And of course, in previous seasons, we had Bell and Lily, we had Bell and Haruhime. We're going to be seeing more in the future as well for other characters. Some of you LN readers know what I'm talking about, but you get all of these situations, and Bell and Eyes get their moments, but it's never really unbelievably significant moments, But it will happen inevitably. Again, I think the biggest issue right now, right, is that Eyes is just way too strong in comparison to Bell. So if we do have significant, struggle situations, right, you can't put Bell in that situation, because if the enemy is too strong for Eyes, Bell is going to die. And if it's too strong for Bell, but not strong enough for Eyes. Eyes is going to be easy. Eyes is easily going to defeat the monster. And then if you bring in Eyes, you bring in the rest of the Loki Familia, which makes things a lot easier for Bell, which becomes a problem for Bell's story development and character development. In fact, I would say the romance development would be there, but then Bell's development isn't. So it ends up becoming the circle of problems, basically, if you try and do that, right? So for me, I think it's more so important that we see Bell's strength development right now. And even though it's going to take a while, even though it's a lengthy process, I think it's well worth it, because maybe in the next couple of novels, you know, from volume 19 onwards, potentially, we may see Bell getting his development with Eyes in a much better fashion. Of course, there is some development between volume 16 to 18, but I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding that because spoilers. But yeah, I think with volume 19 onwards, we're probably going to see a lot more. I hope so, at least. That is the hope, of course, right? But yeah. So far in the main story, especially with just the anime, it's almost like Bell and Eyes have a teacher-student relationship where the student has feelings for the teacher. Obviously, it's not that simple, but it's closer than mutual romance. Until they have some growing closer arc with Bell having to save Eyes, not sure we will see a dynamic change. I think it's a little bit more than just a teacher-student relationship. I mean, as you said, it's not as simple as that. But I do agree with that point that they do need a growing closer arc. Otherwise, it's going to be like, there were many better options than that, you know. I think you can name 5 other characters who had a better chance than Eyes, in all honesty, at this point in time. I can name Ryu, Haruhime, Lily, Hestia, and Seer, to be quite honest. I can throw in Seer there, to be honest. I'll throw in Seer. That's 5 characters. There you go. That's what I've got into, a one-sided relationship where Bell isn't Eyes, but Eyes doesn't really reciprocate. Lol, how would Eyes even stand a chance in the eyes of the fandom? No, she does stand a chance in the eyes of the fandom. It's just a problem of, unfortunately, just not having enough moments together. That's the problem. And again, that's down to just how Omori-sensei has written the story and how Eyes' character is in terms of her strength and how Bell's character is in terms of his strength at this point in time. Again, as we get as the gap gets closer and closer, I think we can start seeing more moments, and I think it'll be much more easier for Omori to start incorporating Eyes in those sequences as well. I have to just close the tab. There you go. But I think it's just a matter of a bit of patience from the fandom. There's no harm in that. Come on now. I say this multiple times, but JC staff isn't doing any favors to Eyes. Oh, absolutely not. It's like pouring oil into the fire. I mean, Omori sensei has put the fire on, and then JC staff is just chucking in oil as well, to be quite honest. It's very funny in that regards. In fact, they are plagued to Eyes with the start of butchering her characteristics in season 1. I think season 1 was okay. Esso was where it just went downhill, to be quite honest. In the eyes of the animes only, it can't be helped that Ryu or other heroines who get more screen time for that matter get more influence in comparison to Eyes, whose main series, Sword Art Rotoria, is considered a failed project and isn't getting any sequels. Yes, for the anime only, that would make sense. And no one really cared about that one much either. Unless you're a hardcore member of Danmachi, you wouldn't be touching light novels or Danmimo either. So for the general audience, Eyes kind of has a hard time to show her appeal. The good old ReZero syndrome. The girl that gets more screen time and less content becomes best girl no matter what. True, very true. But yeah, I kind of understand what they mean. Light novels and Danmachi Memoria Freese isn't getting touched by hardcore members of the by general members of the audience, unless they're very interested in just seeing new stories and stuff, right? So yeah, I understand that point, but I do think that there is a possibility that we could be getting a new announcement for an anime next week, right? Because of course, with the final episode airing, there is a possibility of a new announcement. And furthermore, out of the 10 projects, only 1 project is yet to be announced. For the 10th anniversary of Danmachi's light novels, they are doing like 10 projects this year, basically. So it includes Danmachi Battle Chronicle, a bunch of new light novels, and a couple of other things, right? The 10th project has yet to be announced, and my expectation is that it's going to be a new anime. Now, I don't think it's going to be season 5, because then we would just catch up too soon. The light novel is only on volume 18, and we would cover the next 3 volumes in another season. Basically, assuming another 22 episode season happens, it'll be covered. So they'll have to either do a couple of things. One, make an anime on one of the Danmimo stories, which is possible. I think especially Vesta is very possible, because it'll be a sequel of sorts to the movie Arrow of the Orion, right? Alternatively, they do Sword Art Rotoria again. They try Sword Art Rotoria again. They do a good job this time. and this time Omori supervises the show, which he has been doing with season 4, of course, right? So that's something that's possible. We'll have to wait and see, but that's something that needs to be done, basically. If they really want to give Aiz more credit in the anime, they'll have to do Sword Art Rotoria soon. If you go by show and don't tell, she doesn't. I have no delusions about it. Sorry, my throat is aching badly right now, but I don't know why. If you go by show and don't tell, she doesn't. I have no delusions about Aiz not being the endgame ship, but I seriously have to wonder what Omori was thinking when he wrote Ryu's arc without giving something substantial to Aiz first. I can agree with that. I mean, we did get a little bit of substantiality, I suppose, I don't even know if substantiality is even a word, but we got some substance, I suppose, in volumes 9 to 11, but even then it was more so a different take on it. You know, it wasn't even a romantic moment or a massive development in the romance side of things for Bell and Aiz. In fact, I would say it's more so showing maybe the flaws of each other's character, maybe, or the negatives of each other's character. For Aiz, Bell's protection of a monster, it goes against everything she's stood for, right? Which is defeating the monsters and defeating, you know, the enemies of the dungeon, basically, right? Or enemies in the dungeon, I should say, or, you know. And then, of course, Bell protecting Rine from, and the rest of the Xenoses from Aiz, is him standing up to Aiz as well, right? So for me, that's the situation there. Simple. Most of the fandom knows that Bell only sees Aiz even if they want to otherwise. So there isn't even a competition for Bell's ship because Bell himself is an obstacle to it. Would have liked a harem with Haruhime at first, but after reading all SO in volume 10 and all, 12 and all Aiz, -4 downvotes, even though he's right. And I'll go into a little bit more explanation of why he's technically right. The way he explained it is a bit wrong, in my personal opinion. I can see why he got downvoted, but I think there is a point there, in all honesty. Yes, the classic tell don't show kind of storytelling. Come on, Zekrom. You know what he was trying to say. Keep telling the reader that Bells loves Aiz and then showing meaningful, healthy interactions with other girls. I'm sure fans would love it. I think for the fans, it's definitely not appreciated, but Zekrom is somebody I know very well because of me interacting with him regarding Danmachi Memoria Freese stuff in Discord and stuff, right? I see him in Discord regularly. I agree with Routine Ninja to an extent, purely because Liaris Freeze and Bell's aspirations are literally the obstacle. Bell is the obstacle as a result of that. He is right in that regards. You cannot have him saying like, oh, I love other characters and this and that, because technically his whole strength, his whole growth comes from Liaris Freeze and his aspiration to become stronger than Aiz, to be stronger than Aiz. And in order to do that, he has to have that as a goal, and his goal is always going to be Aiz. He's obviously going to be oblivious and, you know, still appreciate all other female characters like he did with Ryu in this episode and everything, right? But at its core, we cannot deny the fact that his aspirations and his goal and his whole skill with Liaris Freeze is indeed an obstacle to, well, his relationships, his romantic relationships, I should say, with other characters as well. I agree that I would definitely prefer the meaningful and healthy interactions with other girls, but for the context of Bell's story and his growth and his development, I'm sorry, but that's how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. It is how the cookie crumbles. Sadly, author avoided it too long, and you know, anime adaptation already sucks, which it was otherwise, but oh well. At least there's something to wait, I suppose. It's not even the matter that Omori can't write Aiz into the story, it's just that somehow he didn't, lol. The thing is, right, okay, especially in the recent volume where Aiz can't steamroll the problem for Bell, which I spoke about earlier on, I said, right, like, volume 16 to 18, Bell has problems. We get to see some of Aiz's development, but obviously Aiz can't help in those situations, unfortunately. Which we'll obviously talk about when, if you guys want to know about the light novel and stuff, you can go check out my spoiler thoughts. But yes, that happens. Actually, we kind of got spoiled there a little bit in terms of that. But we'll talk about, I'm going to ignore the bottom line because I assume they'll get into spoilers, so I'm going to just zoom past it otherwise. But okay, in terms of this, right, this is a problem that Omori has written. It is literally, he can't write Aiz into the story. It's just impossible for him because, like I mentioned earlier on, if Bell gets into a situation where Aiz and the Loki familiar can extremely easily eviscerate it, Bell's development stagnates, right? His development stagnates. Whereas if you put in a too strong of an opponent, Bell will literally die. So there's realistically no point in doing it, because then it just invalidates Bell's story, which is why we're here. We're not. Okay, I'm sorry, but I think I'm the only one who's here for Belle's story more so than actually the romance side of things. I mean, I obviously want to see Belle fall in love with a character, whoever it may be, right? Hestia, Lily, Ryu, Ice, whoever it may be, right? That is obviously the end goal. That'll be one of the things I want to see at the end of the series. But my main goal, or my main personal appreciation for reading the story, is of course seeing Belle's development. And if Ice is going to be a problem for that development, I'm sorry, Ice gotta go, blood. She's gotta go, fam. She's gotta go. I'd rather him interact with other characters like Ryu, Lily, Haruhime, those in and around his level, those in and around his position, basically, right? And even Sira and Freya, I would say. I wouldn't mind those as well, right? Freya as well, for sure. I wouldn't mind that, because it would make things interesting, right? And it adds another dynamic to the story as well for Bell and his development. So for me, it makes sense. But Eyes will be a problem for Bell's development, especially if it's related to stuff in the dungeon and stuff like that, right? So for me, I get it. It's just that Amori Sensei has run into a problem, and I like the fact that he's at least trying to avoid that problem from being excabulated, because I don't want this series to be, is it wrong for a heroine to save her rabbit or something like that, right? I don't want that. That's not the story. That the story isn't I supposing to save Bell every situation. The situation of the story is Bell's development, the one-eyed black dragon at the end of the story, of course, and then of course any relationships he has at the side. Of course, I know the story is it wrong to try to pick up girls in the dungeon, but we all know at this point, we all know that Amori Sensei wanted it to be called Familiar Myth. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in the dungeon was never supposed to be the actual name of the franchise. The name of the franchise is Familiar Myth. It's all about the familiars. It's all about the story of Orario and the story leading into the one-eyed black dragon. That's my personal opinion on it, and of course Bell's story as a result of that. So let's scroll down. I'm gonna leave that because I don't want to go into too much more detail, because I feel like we'll get into spoilers and I don't want that to happen. This episode, this was about as good as you can get for a non-Astrea familiar level episode. 9 out of 10. Can't wait for the finale. Same here for sure. Next week's finale is gonna be great. I'm still not a Bell and Ryu shipper, never have been, but even I can appreciate finally seeing this animated. Now, next week is the real meat of what the season has been building towards. I hope the animation at least matches the slaughter of the Astrea Familia. Same here. Really, because this just converted me. I don't think I've seen a relationship this close in Danmachi. That is true. I think this is the best relationship development we've seen in Danmachi, period. I would say 100%. I've read this in the LN years ago and I thought it was cute, but I've always loved Eyes. Reading SO and volume 16 to 17 only reinforced that for me. Fair enough, I'm not that close LN wise. Let's scroll down. I want to scroll down here. Probably one of my favorite episodes. Just as always, some things aren't translated perfectly into the anime. I think the anime really fails to show how grievous their injuries are. They are walking corpses right now and they barely have a scratch. Still, as I said before, it was probably up there in my favorite episodes. The VAs are so good. Yeah, absolutely. The VAs are phenomenal. They do a brilliant job there. But yeah, I think it's just that they don't want to still show like all the gore and stuff, right? I think they kind of pulled out their one trick or their one card that when they could do the gore stuff in the last episode, of course, with the slaughter of the Astrea Familia. But outside of that, because of their timings and everything, I think they still have to keep it at a very normal level and just tell about the injuries rather than show the injuries, right? That's at least my thought process, at least with that. Let me go over down here. Okay, good. God, okay, I'm gonna read this now. I'm gonna read this. This will be the last thing we read here. God, they did a good job on the anime, but the atmosphere feels so much more tense and hopeless and horrifying in the LN. I was literally on the edge of my seat reading it. Kind of disappointed I didn't feel as much watching it. I can kind of understand that for sure. I do kind of understand that. And even though I personally felt the same way, I still think there is a level of tense and desperation in the anime as well. It's obviously not on the level of the light novels, because I feel like as readers and as people who are imagining it, we were, you know, sort of like exaggerate our imagination, right? We take the words that are thrown in our faces and we exaggerate it in our minds. That always happens, even in other novels. If I have to even use like English novels like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or anything of that sort, they are the language, the descriptive words are used so well in those novels that it kind of exaggerates in your mind on like the scale of things, and then in the movies and the TV shows or whatever it may be, it doesn't really match up, right? So that is something that happens, I feel, but I feel like that's just a byproduct of effectively us imagining way too much, basically, you know what I mean? So yeah, but yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this episode as well. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say down below. I'm very excited for the finale next week. We're going to be doing a full season review as well afterwards, after the season is done and everything. We'll do a full season review as well. I will try and incorporate maybe the side stories from Danmimo as well in that season review as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this episode down below in the comments. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.